This week's Drawing Brothers and Sisters is the lovely Lauren Cohen, who plays Maggie Green. If you like this type of artwork and more, remember to follow me on all the social networks. The Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 5, Internment. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Dead Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on this week's episode of The Walking Dead. This week's episode is titled Internment, and it was, I think, really, in a lot of ways, may have been the best episode thus far. The producers initially and a lot of the actors have said that this is one of those seasons that just kind of starts out a certain way and then just keeps building and building and getting better and better, as opposed to kind of those peaks and valleys that normally take place, whereas the premiere being really, action heavy, and then the mid-season finale and then the finale. And this one's really good because it starts out and it really shows everything that's going on back from the survivors of Cell Block D that are now infected with the flu. Herschel, of course, in the last episode or two has opted to, go and make his tea and help to try to hydrate people, and is doing his best within that cell block, even at obviously his own risk of being older and not knowing how this is communicated or spread or who's susceptible. Certainly he's taking a big risk going in there, but he's been in there for some time now. So the episode goes, and it starts out, though, with Rick returning, and minus Carol, obviously, from the kind of shocker in last week's episode, and Maggie opens up the gate and lets him in, and she's like, and immediately he jumps out and he's like, "Where's Carl? Where's Judith? How is everybody?" That sort of thing. And Maggie's like, they're fine, now where's Carol? And Rick's like, she's not coming back. And he's like, don't worry, she's not dead, she's okay. And he explains briefly what happened. And then, the episode had started out right where it left off in the last episode, where it's him driving, and you can tell it's eating away at him. He keeps looking down at the watch that Carol gave him. And I think it's really eating away at him and bothering him, and he's questioning whether it was the right decision or not to do, to that extreme. And whether you're for or against it, ultimately, she's been there since day one, since he was reunited with his family back in the second or third episode of the first season. So it would stand to reason that it would have been a tough choice no matter what she had done or how she had turned out or what kind of monster she's become. So you can be in whichever camp you want for or against his decision, but ultimately he was wrestling with his decision, and I think that made it that much more human, because obviously it was not an easy thing to do. So he goes in as if to ask for kind of reassurance that he made the right choice. He explains what happened, that she, in fact, was the one who killed David and Karen. She was trying to, stop the infection from spreading, but he explains, listen, Tyrese, will want to kill her, and I don't want her around, so I made the call that she's not coming back. And then Maggie says, I would have done the same thing. She said, I agree with your decision, but I don't know if I would have been strong enough to do it. And then Rick says, you'd be surprised at how strong you are, and that. So there's that exchange between them. And then the majority of the episode then, from that point, just a few minutes in to probably about the last 15 or 20 minutes, takes place all within that cell block that they've put everybody into to isolate. I'm not sure if it's C or if it's D. But all the survivors from D they put into the cell block, and it's basically like the solitary confinement type cell block. So it keeps hopefully the germs contained. And we wind up seeing Glenn is very, very sick. This Dr. S, Caleb S, he is extremely sick. There is an exchange towards the beginning where Sasha and Glenn are helping Herschel, and he's fighting a losing battle, but he's not giving up hope. And I think that's really what you can take from this as far as Herschel goes, is that he's a stand-up type of guy, but he also, he believes, he always believes that there's some hope, and he hangs on to that, and that's what keeps him going. Because they go in there, they're trying to resuscitate and basically stick this tube down a person's throat to like force them to breathe, or maybe to get them fluids, to get it down. So he kind of takes care of that, and then puts, Glenn and Sasha in charge of taking care of it, or Sasha, I believe. And then he asks Glenn to come with him on his rounds. And he's real big on, everybody knows that's in that cell block that it's hopeless, but he doesn't want them to lose hope completely. So I guess when people are dying, and then before they turn, he goes and he tries to get them out of the view of everybody else, so him and Glenn go, and there's an exchange where they take this person who's died, they put him on and there are a bunch of the nameless, faceless people from Woodbury that we never really got to meet, so it doesn't really have much of an impact when they die. But they wind up putting him on a gurney and then going and taking him to another room away from everybody else before they go and stab the soon-to-be Walker in the head. So I definitely feel that there was a really good human touch with that. It's even though you have to be a certain way in this type of zombie apocalypse and what have you, he's trying to make it to where people can still hold out and have a little bit of hope, even though they feel like everything's gone, let's not just go and stab this person right in front of everybody. There's a couple of kids in there, So, as the episode progresses, though, Glenn gets more and more sick, and you start to think, I really thought that Herschel was going to bite it in this one. I had read something this week that Herschel was originally slated to be killed at the end of season 2, and just through a series of different changes and script changes, and they basically didn't think it was going to be a good idea. They decided to keep him around. And then, of course, in season 3, you thought he was going to get bit, but Rick was quick thinking, chopping his leg off. Now he's hobbling around with his prosthetic leg. And I just thought it was his time. I mean, he's been dodging bullets for several seasons now. And I really like the guy. He reminds me of Dale, and he's kind of like the voice of reason. He's kind of got that fatherly, grandfatherly type deal, going with him. The way he speaks, he's very stoic. I like him. But I really thought he was going to be killed in this episode. Or Glenn. I wasn't really quite sure what was going to happen. So Rick winds up coming back, and he has a brief exchange with Herschel, and it's kind of like they're kind of like these two like unsung hero leaders of the group, And Rick tells him, what happened, and then he gives him the whole rundown on Carol. And afterwards, you can tell that that Herschel was affected by that and bothered, because he's just kind of walking away and he's just thinking in his mind, here's somebody that I knew, and we're losing people left and right, and it's just kind of that hopeless feeling. And then Rick also goes and he winds up running into to Carl, who's been kept in kind of like a solitary confinement away from the sick people, because they deem that the kids and the older people are more susceptible to catching this. So, and Carl's basically chomping at the bit. He's like, let me help. Let me do something, And Rick's like, oh, you can help out. Go get, he's got some fruit and some supplies that he got from the, from when him and Carol were in that town in the last episode. So go take care of that, Carl. So things go from bad to worse because people start turning within this cell block. One of them is that doctor, that Caleb. He has an exchange with Herschel too, where he shows him that he brought a gun in with him for when things go really bad. And he also says to him, he says, if you're not willing to lose one, then you could lose them all. So he's trying to say, don't waste time on me. I'm done. Go help other people that could use your help. And when Herschel goes and shines the light in his eyes, you can see his eyes are just like not bloodshot, but like bloodied, like he's going into, he's gonna die, he's on death's doorstep, and he knew that, So it winds up being all kind of chaos, and hell breaks out in the cell block because one of the people they were trying to keep alive dies. There was another character that basically locked himself back in his cell because his brother, I think it was, he said he was sleeping, but he really knew that he had died. He just didn't want to let go of him, And all hell winds up breaking loose. A walker winds up going and kind of falling onto Herschel. And I'm thinking, oh man, he's going to get bit, And as that's happening, another woman comes out of her cell and comes to help, pulls this walker off. She's getting bit. The guy comes out of the cell that was in there with his brother or what have you, and he's got a gun, right? And he's going and as he's going to line up and take a shot to go and help him out, his brother, who's zombified, comes out and bites into his arm. And again, these are all nameless people that we don't know who the hell they are, so their deaths don't really have much of a weight or an impact on us. However, all hell breaks loose, and you're thinking, there's no way Herschel's going to be able to get out of this. I mean, there's just walkers everywhere, right? There's people turning or biting and turning. And it really is. It's pretty intense, and it was very, very cool the way everything was done, I think, anyway. So Maggie was outside, and Maggie was outside, and she's cutting pieces of timber, logs that they have, I guess, and like 4, 5, 6 foot things, and actually bracing them up against the fence. This is kind of a quick portion that it goes outside because the walkers are building up again on the fence, and this has just been my feeling from day one, is that shit's going to come down sooner or later. We saw in some of the season 4 promos the fence ripped open, and just that the prison's not the end game for them, that's coming to an end, right? So she's trying to brace these things up there, Rick is helping out, and and Rick goes and sends her to go and check on what's going on because they hear the gunshot from when that guy, the nameless, faceless guy, whatever his name was trying to help and save Herschel, and he got bit on the arm by his brother. As he fell down, he fired a shot or two. So Maggie goes, in the next few minutes, there's her trying to feverishly break through the glass to get into and help out the place. Herschel winds up going and making it back to that Caleb Cell or whatever, the doctor, Dr. S they call him, and he's now a zombie, and he kind of comes at him through the bars. Herschel's able to stab him in the head and then go and get into that cell and load this gun that he's got, this like antique shotgun or whatever it looked like. That little girl Lizzie, one of the two girls that her father died in the first or the second episode, when Cell Block D got overrun and everything like that by the zombies from inside, Lizzie her name is. She goes and she lures this one out, the one that Glenn was in there trying to go and help to resuscitate the guy and keep him breathing or whatever. He had one of those bags on, and I think it was like a fluid bag, to keep him hydrated. He had turned, and so he didn't bite Glenn. Lizzie started kind of trying to motion him out like he was a dog. She's like, come here, boy, come here. Come on, fresh meat type of thing, So she goes and she's luring him out, to get him away from Glenn. And although it was very foolish, and the kid, I think, is a couple sandwiches shy of a good picnic, I really think that, she had good intentions with what she was doing. So she's going and luring this thing out and winds up falling on top of her because she trips, as happens in these things all the time. Herschel comes in to go and pull it off and save it. Maggie gets in at the proper time, and Herschel, and this thing's like about to bite Herschel, and you're like, he's done, right? And Maggie's like underneath because they're up on the second floor, and they're rolling around in this fence, this chain link fence that's over there. And he's like, no, don't shoot. You might bust this bag, and then Glenn will die, right? So she takes an extra couple seconds and kind of thinks in her mind between Glenn and her father, and she steadies her aim, takes the shot, and winds up nailing this thing and does not break the bag or what have you. So then she goes and she's able to help. Herschel, of course, has taken out the other few zombies with that Dr. S's gun that he had, and they're able to kind of calm things down finally within the cell block. And get things back in order. They're able to go and help Glenn, and Glenn is basically going into like shock and dying. He can't breathe. They're able to go and stick the tube down his throat or whatever they're doing. And I don't know if they're doing this it's an airbag to force air into his lungs, or if they're just trying to keep fluid into him, or they're trying to pull fluid out of his lungs. I'm not a doctor, and I don't really pretend to be one either. So, but it was definitely intense. Just the whole thing from start to finish was like, oh, somebody's gonna die. Because then when Maggie came, I'm thinking, oh, Maggie's gonna die, and then I'm like, well, maybe Glenn's gonna die. I'm like, they gotta kill somebody, somebody important. So then we go out and we see Rick has went and commandeered, because Maggie left, couldn't help him at the fence anymore. So Rick went and commandeered the help of Carl. And they're out there and they're having this cute father and son moment, right? It reminds me of me and my oldest son, and maybe us going and hanging out, doing something, planting some shrubs or doing some gardening or playing some baseball, what have you. And they're over there talking to each other and kind of smiling, and Rick's like, oh, I'm fine. And Carl's like, let me help. And they prop this, they're propping these things up against it, and they're basically just their logs. They're tree logs, 5, 6, 7 feet long. They're propping them on an angle up against the fence to hold the weight of these hundreds of walkers that are pushing forward. So anyway, one of the things winds up going and shakes loose, and as Rick's trying to put it back up, other ones start shaking loose, and the whole goddamn fence just starts caving in, right? And this was really, really intense, because that they're not going to kill Carl or Rick, or at least I don't think they're going to. So never did I believe that they were actually going to die. But it's amazing, because there's like these two fences, for the prison, and it's almost like the yard that they can run through. It's like gravel, and they're in this spot in between there. The first fence caves in, and Rick's like trying to crawl and climb out from there, and Carl's trying, and they're trying to get together. They wind up going, there's hundreds of these things coming at them. They wind up, they're able to get to a door in one of the guard towers and then come out on the other side. They're trying to think of what to do, and Rick's like, maybe I can back the bus up to the fence. I don't know if I can, this and that. So then they go over to their handy-dandy Acme crate. It looks like something out of the Looney Tunes type thing. It's got, it's got assault rifles and sniper rifles, baseball bats, whatever they need in there. Weapons they've collected to fight the impending zombies that are always attacking. And it was a cool bonding moment between Rick and Carl, because they wind up going, and Rick takes a couple of M4s. Excuse me, I'm getting a little parched over there. I think everybody in my family's starting to get sick, and it's probably coming my way. I'm getting a little dry. So they wind up going and grabbing from this crate a couple of, it looks like M4s, assault rifles, and Rick's kind of giving Carl the rundown on how to go and, how to, lock it into place, and this is what you do with the clip, and this is what you pull back on the slide pin, and, make your shots count, blah, 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 and you're like, what the fuck, are you serious? They're going to try to take these things out? Well, as they come and start flooding through the corner of that next portion of the fence that they're getting through, because again, the weight of them just are able to push through, and these things are ferocious and terrifying, and it really reminded me of something out of like a George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead type deal, because instead of just like mindless, like, these fuckers look like they got a purpose, like they've been out there for a while pushing on the fence, they want to get in, So we see this really cool bonding moment, and it's almost like terrifying to Rick, because he realizes that Carl he pulls the trigger very easily, right? And he's very good, and he's realizing that his son is never going to just be a normal kid, and that basically he's got the makings of a cold-hardened killer because he has to be that way, and that's the way that he's seen now for the last couple of years. The things that he's seen. And there was an exchange earlier too where he was talking to Herschel about how it's never going to be the same again, or maybe he says that later, I don't know. But the point is that things aren't ever going to be the same again, Well, him and Carl wind up going and single-handedly mowing down like this 200 or 300 zombie herd, and it's a bunch of great shots that they do and everything, and then they are able to take them out. And then as the episode wraps up, it's kind of neat because Daryl and Michonne and Tyrese and Bob, they make it back at the last few minutes of the episode with the medicine. And of course, we know that there's going to eventually be a Daryl and Rick showdown, or at least something, because, I think Daryl still wanted to stick it in Carol. But that's a story for another time because none of that winds up happening. But anyway, they wind up kind of, getting the medicine, and they start going and kind of stabilizing Glenn. Sasha, who had wound up passing out earlier in the episode, and we thought maybe was dead. Herschel came and revived her, and she just passed out, fallen and hit her head type thing. It looks like she may be okay. Looks like they just got there in time with the medicine, And it's like the next day, and everything is all tidied up, and it's basically just like, okay, well, whatever, Rick and Carl took out some zombies, and Carl comes out, and he's like, oh, why didn't you wake me up? And he's got the signature cowboy, sheriff's hat, and he's like, oh, I figured I'd let you sleep in, killed all those zombies last night, right? It's probably what he's thinking. So anyway, he's like, I got to go off and talk to Daryl, and he's like, you got to do that now? And he goes, no, I don't got to do it now. And he decides to be a father instead. And plus, I think he's kind of trying to avoid the whole thing because he doesn't want to have to explain to Daryl, like, hey, listen, man, I know that, back in season 1, I locked your brother, I handcuffed him to a roof. He cut his own hand off, eventually became our enemy. Then he was our friend, and then he died. Well, the girl that you got close with and that you wanted to bang, or maybe the motherly type, whatever Carol was to Daryl, he's going to have to eventually come to grips with and tell him, hey, listen, I exiled her, So all in all, it was a very good episode, and it winds up ending off on just like a really, really cool thing. It zooms out, it pans out, right? Shows the prison and whatnot, and then you hear this music kind of creeping up, and who do you see standing there? But the governor, right? You can see him, you just see like a silhouette of the back of him, and at the last second or two, he kind of turns his head a little bit, and you can see that goddamn eye patch. So we all knew he was coming back at some point or another. I think personally that maybe he was doing something or had some kind of inside plan to wind up, getting these things to keep attacking the fences. However he was doing, I don't know. I could be wrong, but the shit's going to definitely hit the fan in the next episode or two. So all in all, a very, very good episode. Some kind of bonding things between, father and son with the Grimes boys over there. And really just, like I said, a very, very fun, very, kind of gripping, edge of your seat episode, because all episode I was like, who are they going to kill, And it was a bunch of no-name people in this one, but we got a few episodes until the mid-season finale, so things are definitely going to heat up over here in the coming weeks. So all in all, my episode question is, do you think that, as far as the whole thing between Carl and Rick, do you think that it was right? I know Rick had no other choice, but do you think it was right, Rick going, and what do you think about the whole exchange with Rick and, Carl kind of bonding and taking out a herd of zombies? You know what I mean? Do you think this is an evolution for Carl? This is the next step? This is Rick finally saying, hey, dude, we're going to need your help because you're a good shot, even though you're my kid? Weigh in and answer that question, brothers and sisters, in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll look forward to catching you in the next one, nation.
As always, thank you for watching, brothers and sisters, for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, and just spreading the word of the nation.